All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you had a wonderful weekend. January is coming to an end, and we are wrapping it up with the biggest week with a ton of important events. Everything from earnings all the way down to Powell and data, and the way this week plays out, if anything is going to stop this record of hitting all-time highs over and over again, it is going to be what happens this week. So, Chad, we got a bunch to talk about. There's a lot of plays, a lot of earnings, even from last week. We got a couple that came back. There was a lot of free plays, $10 to $1,000, all sorts of different opportunities, but you have 50% of the S&P 500 reporting this week. We're going to have a lot more of those. I got a recap of this schedule and what to expect, and then I got a little bit of tips or things to look ahead of for Powell. So what I need from you, a thumbs up on the video. Make sure you're subscribed, and if you don't know, we are live Monday through Friday, 30 minutes before open, youtube.com/The Stock Market. We will see you there in the morning. Run it, baby.
Walking to the couch, it's the 2020 election. Live in the hills, but I still get a spread. Started with a live, but I still reinvest it. Feel how I feel, then you feel it's a blessing. I just want the lesson, I just want protection. I'm up and I'm down, but they sound like progression. Farmer never plans if he waits for perfection. Finger to the down.
All right, off the bat, if you're not aware, this is literally going to be the biggest week of the year, if not up until March, given that we're going to be having Powell. But we talked about this on the seasonality video. One thing you got to keep in mind for as we end this week and start February has a very interesting seasonal factor. Not only is it one of two of the worst months of the year, but the fun fact about February, it actually starts off positive in the first 2 weeks, and historically, the last 2 weeks of February is the worst time in the market. So add that to what we're going to be getting this week in Powell and all of the big tech earnings. We are definitely in for a treat. And if you're not familiar, you're getting Microsoft, Google, and AMD all on Tuesday. Even afterwards, I think Meta, Apple, Amazon, those are like Wednesday and Thursday, but you're going to get a bunch of other companies, everything from Starbucks to Qualcomm. I think SMCI reports, remember, they went crazy off the pre-announcement, but there's a ton of companies, even Abivai, Cigna at the end of the week. Going to hear from MasterCard, Whirlpool, Boeing, Novo Nordisk. There's going to be a ton of different events, but clearly all of the big tech ones, which even start very close. After tomorrow, we're going to be right into big earnings, even UPS on Tuesday. Then you get a lot of other big companies, and then you close it out with Apple and Amazon, and then even better, you got Powell in the middle of the week. He is going to be on Wednesday, and then after all of that, you're going to get the non-farms on Friday. There's a couple of other events overseas, but what we got going on domestically, this is going to be the big driver both here and abroad, so I hope you're ready for it. But coming into your second key, there's a couple of things we got to talk about Powell. He shouldn't be too crazy given we haven't seen Powell make a big shift ever since all of the big shifts that happened last December, the last SEP. But what people are saying here is that this is the first meeting. We haven't heard Powell all year, and this is his chance to set the precedent like last year. And if you remember what he did last year, it was after we were at the lows of October 2022. Market bounced up a little bit, then Powell came in, and he was surprisingly dovish. So with all of the pushback we've been getting from some of the Fed speakers lately, it will be interesting to see, does Powell push back, or is he going to actually surprise us again like last year and come out surprisingly bullish? If there is going to be any pushback to this whole 10 rate cuts, 7 rate cuts, whatever the market was pricing in, it is going to happen this week. And this is the one thing I really want you to keep an eye on. We will talk about this on Tuesday. I will give you a pre-Fed breakdown. We want to watch out if Powell says anything about financial conditions. Lately, that has been the big factor here, because even though they've been talking about rates and even though the data has been moving faster than they expected and going in the direction that they want, the financial conditions have eased a lot. And if that is going to be a problem, that's what Powell would bring up in 2022, and every time we would go down. He's not really likely to bring it up, but I would be watching out for that. And then the next thing we want to watch out for, I don't have it written here, I'm just getting too excited. watch out for any updates on the quantitative tightening. The reverse repo, it is starting to dwindle down, I believe, at the fastest pace. And once that gets near zero or at zero, we may get an interesting dynamic at play. But a lot of other Fed speakers were bringing that up. Don't forget, just a couple of weeks ago, when everybody was getting very bearish on the Fed, they would say something about quantitative tightening, and the market found a way to like that. So I would definitely be keeping those as some of the main themes for this week. But all in all, this week is very big because there's a lot riding on it, but it's going to be very simple. Earnings is going to give a lot of plays. There's going to be a lot of info on an individual level. You will get a lot of movements out of all the companies, and this is something we've been talking about. Do not forget the 3 stages of earnings. If you want to make a play, you don't have to gamble on the earnings right before or the day of. Those are 2 of the 3 opportunities. You could always play the pre-earnings run-up. That's right before a company reports. It starts going up. The premiums go crazy. The Intel, that's a great example of it. You could play the day of, just like some of the other ones we've played recently. You could play it the day before and still get a big hit. Even AXP, that was another one on Friday. And finally, there's the post-earnings. You saw what we did with Tesla, saw what we did with Netflix, even IBM, that had a great post-earnings. So what I'm trying to have you realize here, there's going to be a lot of info. There's a lot of different ways to play it. You don't have to force it, but now the cherry on top, Powell is literally going to decide this whole entire week. It doesn't matter if you have the worst earnings in the world, the best earnings in the world. Given this is the first Powell of the year, we haven't heard him in a month. Depending on what he says, Powell will be holding a lot of weight this week, and this is going to be the main event. So I hope you're ready, but let us get into the plays. So, right off the bat, I got a couple of different plays for you. I'm going to start with one of the post-earnings from last week. We actually played this the day of. It started moving around, but given how it moved, I would be watching AXP, and what I'm really waiting for is a double dip after earnings. So, American Express, they had really good earnings. This one actually ended up hitting 2 standard deviations. In this case, believe it or not, I went a little further than 2 standard deviations. So, I end up grabbing the 205 calls, but the 202.5, this was actually this 1,000%, or this was the 2 standard deviations. I just didn't want to spend that much money, so I went a little further out. But the thing about it, just like a lot of the other plays like Procter & Gamble, and I'm still holding in that, they ran up there and then they came down. I was talking about this one on Friday all stream. We'll see how it even plays out tomorrow on Monday, but if this thing comes down to 45 cents again, I plan on double dipping. Otherwise, I think it should be able to run up good. There is even a MasterCard as well, and that should give it a little bit of juice, but for the most part, they had a good earnings. Things were not bad on the credit card front, and with one credit card company already doing bad like Discover and them running up and now all-time highs, I think they've ran like $10 to $20 every all-time high they've broken in the past. So if we get the right environment, I do think this one is going to be running. I will be holding that, but it expires this week, so we will have to be taking profits. So that is play number 1. Then play number 2. This one's a little bold, and it kind of relates to some other things going on last week, but CHIR. This is the Chinese real estate ETF, and why I like it is because of the rate cut last week. A lot of the China plays, and I have this at the end, you got to realize, even last week, I believe was the most amount of money into emerging markets ever. That includes China, but the caveat to all of this is that a lot of people are still saying that China is uninvestable, and for the meantime, it is just a short-term trade. So why I'm bringing up Chinese real estate right now is because any other time they have had a rate cut or any of these movements here, you could see on the chart, even in the short term, even as they were going down, it would give them their little pops here. So you are kind of moving off the bottom already. That's kind of the downside, but I do think in the short term, you may have a little bit of upside on any Chinese property stocks, but be careful. It's going to be a game of musical chairs, but definitely watching that one to start off the week, especially alongside earnings. And then finally, speaking of earnings, that is what we're going to be looking at a lot. So the main plays, and even every day, I will be going over all of those. Again, just like we did last week, we're going to look to make small plays. We're going to calculate the 2 standard deviations. Be there on stream. We'll go over all of it, but what I have here is 5 different names. First 5, unironically, SWKS, Pfizer, Team, and Deck. These are some names besides the bigger movers that have moved very well in the past, or they have some big pivotal earnings, kind of like Pfizer or like DEC, where they're trading at a huge premium at an all-time high. So I would keep an eye on these. I do think there's going to be a lot of opportunities, and one thing we learned about last week, it may happen at the beginning of the week. There is Apple and Amazon on Thursday towards the end of the week, but I really think Tuesday, Wednesday earnings, that's where a lot of the action's going to happen. Then we're going to get Powell, and then we go from there. But 50% of the S&P is reporting. There will be a lot of plays. Go watch the 2 standard deviation tutorial, but I think that's all I got for it. I don't have any other plays. I did make a play on Cisco on Friday. They had news of like a breach, and I said, well, I'll go for the pre-earnings. That was like 36 cents. I did do a play on T-Mobile. They were negative in the morning off of their earnings, and then they started running up, so I spent like $20 on the out of the money just in case they bounced. And then the rest were the other plays. WDC, that place was close, but we failed on that one. Levi's didn't really work. Capital One, that didn't work. And then the AXP, that one ended up hitting. And I did go for a PayPal play. That was just after the event and not related to earnings. So a lot of the small option plays we're still doing. I do still got those Russell futures and a couple of other things still getting worked on bonds, but I think by Powell, we should get some big movements and see how we're going to lead into the first couple of weeks of February and what's the game plan until March. But Chad, that is your watch list, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure hydrate healthy, ready to go. Make sure post your watch list. Make sure we see you there in the morning. I need the armor on. I need the helmet shining. And I need you to remember the importance of saving. I don't know what type of motivation you thought I was going to hit you with. I'm going to have to explain this tomorrow, but it's bigger than that. Chad, saving. Keep things safe. Keep it protected and understand that is where you start a lot of things. Everything comes from a seed, Chad. But I love you. I will see you in the morning. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Drink that water. Hydrate it. Get some good sleep. I'm going to sleep early tonight, and I'll see you in the morning. Horn.